I'm Sophie, 28, living in Phoenix, Arizona, far from my hometown, far from everyone who knew me. After almost 2 years of grueling treatments, endless cycles of hope only to have it crushed again and again, Ethan and I finally dared to believe it was over. We were free from that invisible nightmare of infertility. The moment I saw those 2 lines on the test, I was paralyzed. I stood there, staring at it, for what felt like an eternity. 5 minutes? Maybe more. It didn't feel real. My hands shook uncontrollably. My heart pounded in my chest. And suddenly, without warning, tears flooded my eyes. I couldn't help it. This baby was everything we'd dreamed of. Every tear, every sleepless night in those sterile clinic rooms. It all came down to this moment. It was the answer to every prayer I'd whispered in the dark, wondering if I still had the strength to keep fighting. But as much as I wanted to feel joy, there was a shadow of fear always lurking. I had lost 2 babies before, and that fear was never far behind. That kind of loss, it's not just emotional, it's a physical ache. It feels like your heart is being ripped out, one piece at a time. And I promised myself, never again. I couldn't survive it a 3rd time. This time, we decided to keep it quiet. No big announcements, no social media posts, nothing. Not even my parents, not even Madeline. She was the only one who knew. People might say I'm being selfish or overly cautious, but they have no idea what it's like to guard your heart. To protect yourself, you sometimes have to build a space where hope can survive, untouched by expectations, untouched by the fear of losing again. I wasn't ready to face the heartbreak of having to announce another loss. Not again. Not after everything we've been through. My family, the typical loud, in-your-face American kind. My parents, the Hendersons, would throw a party for any reason. Hell, if the neighbor's dog learned a new trick, they'd invite the whole damn neighborhood. Then there's Madeline, 3 years younger, beautiful, always the center of attention. She lives for the spotlight, walks through life like it's her personal stage. Last year, she almost had the perfect wedding. A massive affair at a Miami resort, all set. But the night before, her charming fiancé slept with her maid of honor. The betrayal? It cut deep. Madeline found out when she was trying on her wedding gown for the final fitting. Picture it. She's in that dress, thinking she's about to step into her fairy tale, only to find out that her happily ever after was a lie. The next day, instead of walking down the aisle, she collapsed in the living room, surrounded by untouched wedding gifts. She cried like the world had ended. We all tried to pull her back, tried to lift her up, but something in her broke that day. She changed. Her smile became sharp, her tone colder, and instead of healing, she poured all her energy into climbing the career ladder. So when she was promoted to department director at the city's biggest financial firm, it was no surprise that she planned a lavish party. My parents called me 3 times in one morning, practically buzzing with excitement, as if she'd just won an Olympic gold medal. "Sophie, you have to be there. This is a huge moment for your sister," my mother insisted, her voice thick with that familiar pressure. The weight of it pressed down on me, the expectation suffocating. I knew I couldn't keep saying no. But the more they pushed, the more my anxiety ate at me. My belly wasn't obvious yet, but every day it was harder to hide the truth. The last thing I wanted was to take away from her moment, to shift the attention from her promotion to the questions about my pregnancy. When are you due? How far along are you? That would destroy her happiness in an instant. Ethan took my hand, his touch firm yet comforting. "Go, Sophie. We can keep the secret a little longer. Let her have her night." I nodded, but deep down, I felt the unease simmering inside me, a fever that wouldn't break. That evening, the sky over Phoenix hung heavy, the air thick with tension, like it knew something was about to go terribly wrong. I stood before the mirror, adjusting the soft, flowing olive dress, hoping it would hide the growing curve of my belly. A cardigan draped over my shoulders, a touch of makeup to soften the puffiness of my face. Every detail designed to make sure tonight belonged to her, not me. Ethan stood in the doorway, his eyes a mixture of love and concern. "You okay?" His voice pulled me back from the spiraling thoughts. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile, more for myself than for him. The party was at a rooftop venue on South Congress Street, a place Madeline always called the city's view for winners. The place shimmered with fairy lights, wine glasses clinking, and laughter echoing as soon as you walked in. Madeline knew how to steal the spotlight like nobody else. "Sophie!" Her voice rang out across the room, high-pitched and overly enthusiastic. She rushed over and wrapped me in a tight hug. "I thought you'd use work as an excuse to skip my party again." I squeezed her shoulders lightly, smiling through the discomfort. "Today's your big day. How could I miss it?" For a split second, Madeline's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, but I caught the sharp scrutiny in her gaze, quick but unmistakable. She didn't say a word more. Instead, she tugged me into the crowd, where the sound of glasses clinking and laughter filled the air. Throughout the evening, I stayed in my safe zone, slowly moving through the crowd, finding quiet corners, avoiding tight hugs, and steering clear of any suspicious glances. Ethan kept his distance, hovering nearby but never too close, just enough to keep an eye on me without drawing suspicion. I thought I had it under control until I bumped into Aunt Beth. Aunt Beth, my dad's sister, was the type of woman who had no filter. In her 50s, she could be sharp, outspoken, and sometimes tactless in the worst possible way. She was infamous in the family for her sixth sense, a talent for reading people's faces as if they were an open book. Tonight, that so-called gift of hers would be my undoing. "Sophie, you've filled out, haven't you?" She tilted her head, narrowing her eyes as she scrutinized me. "But it's not the usual weight gain. Your skin's glowing. Your eyes are sparkling. Come on, tell me. What's under that dress?" I froze, my fingers clutching my glass of lemonade so tightly that it felt like it might shatter. A dozen excuses rushed to my mind, but before I could even speak, Aunt Beth's hand was already resting on my stomach. Her eyes widened for a moment, then, without skipping a beat, she burst into laughter. "Oh my goodness, Sophie, I knew it. Congratulations, sweetheart." She said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. This should have been announced the moment we walked in. My face burned with heat. I grabbed her hand, lowering my voice to a harsh whisper. "Aunt Beth, please, keep this to yourself. Tonight is her night. I don't want to steal that from her." But asking Aunt Beth to keep quiet was like asking the wind to stop blowing. It wasn't going to happen. She patted my cheek, grinning ear to ear, her expression all too knowing. "Honey, the family's been waiting for this even longer than Ethan's proposal. Don't be selfish, share this joy with us." I watched helplessly as Aunt Beth disappeared into the crowd, the sound of my heart pounding so loudly I could hardly hear the music anymore. And then, the moment I'd feared, the one I dreaded, came crashing down. "Everyone, may I have your attention?" Aunt Beth's voice boomed through the microphone, cutting through the lively chatter like a knife. "I have some wonderful news to share. Sophie, where are you, darling?" Every single eye in the room turned toward me. I felt their eyes drilling into me, the whispers swarming. But it was Madeline's cold, piercing gaze that hit me like a dagger. "My beloved niece, Sophie, is expecting a baby," Aunt Beth declared, her voice booming like a game show host, reading out lottery numbers. For one frozen second, the room held its breath. Then it erupted. Applause, cheers, congratulations crashing down like waves. People wrapped their arms around me, asking questions, their eyes sparkling with excitement. Everything I'd fought to keep hidden came rushing at me, suffocating me all at once. Ethan's hand found mine, gripping it tightly, his eyes full of worry and sympathy. But what hit me hardest was seeing Madeline standing alone in the corner. Her glass of red wine tilted slightly, the liquid glistening under the lights like spilled blood. Her smile was twisted, broken, brittle. And in that moment I knew it wasn't her night anymore. I barely broke free from the relentless congratulations when I saw Madeline slip out to the balcony, her wine glass barely hanging from her hand. The wine in her hand tilted dangerously, a dark red streak glistening under the dim light. No one had to tell me. I knew I had to follow her. "Give me a moment, Ethan," I whispered, weaving through the crowd, heading toward the door. The glass door swung open, a sharp gust of cold air slapping me across the face, a harsh contrast to the warmth that buzzed inside. Madeline stood there, her hand resting on the railing, her gaze fixed on the distant glow of Phoenix's city lights, flickering like dying stars. As soon as she heard my footsteps, she spoke, her voice rasping, laced with bitterness. "So you finally found a way to make everything about you, even tonight, of all nights," she spat. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat threatening to choke me. "Madeline, this wasn't my choice." I begged Aunt Beth not to say anything. "You know I didn't want to steal your spotlight." "Oh, really?" She let out a dry laugh, turning to face me, her eyes cold and sharp, like daggers. "You wore that oversized dress, hiding in the corner, as if you were just waiting for someone to notice your little secret." "Stop pretending, Sophie. I know you too well." Her words cut through me, sharp and merciless. "What are you saying, Madeline? Do you think I wanted this?" "You've always been this way." Madeline stepped closer, her voice dropping low, a cutting edge in every word. "You got married first. You're always the one Mom praises, mature, thoughtful, and now, just when I'm about to have my big moment as a bride, you conveniently get pregnant. How convenient." I stood frozen, my hands falling to my sides, my heart cracked under the weight of her cruelty. "Madeline, you've crossed a line. You know how hard Ethan and I fought for this. I've lost 2 babies already." My voice faltered, the raw, painful memories flooding back like a gut punch. "Oh, I know. You lost too, didn't you?" Madeline sneered, her eyes flashing with venom. "So now you have to make extra sure, right? Or maybe you're just scared of failing again. You want the whole world to know, just in case it all falls apart. Then you'll have their pity waiting for you." I stood there, stunned. Each word struck me like a slap. The air grew heavy, anger boiling up inside me like a violent storm. "You really said that?" I gasped, struggling to keep the fury inside from exploding. "Do you even remember who sat with you the entire night when that bastard ditched you before your wedding? Who packed every damn gift? Who called every vendor to cancel so you wouldn't have to face more pain?" Madeline clenched her fists, nails digging into her pale skin, her glare unwavering, sharp enough to cut. "You think that erases everything? You've always been the perfect daughter. And me? I've always been the failure, the one they talk about when there's nothing else to gossip about." I bit down on my lip until I tasted blood, my hand instinctively resting on my belly, shielding the fragile life growing inside me. "Madeline, I never wanted to compete with you. Never. But if you choose to hate me just because I'm happy, that's your problem, not mine." My words hung there, heavy and unresolved. Madeline's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes bloodshot but unyielding. "You can pretend to be noble to everyone else, but not to me, Sophie." She turned on her heel, the sharp click of her heels echoing on the cold stone floor. "Just remember this. I lost everything tonight. You got your perfect moment. Congratulations. You win. Is that what you wanted?" I didn't follow her. The cold wind whipped past, carrying her words away like the trash they were. All I saw then was a broken Madeline, clinging to her resentment as if it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. But this time, I refused to carry her weight. I stood there long after she left, the cold creeping through my jacket, making my skin crawl. The anger faded, the sadness too. All that was left was an empty, hollow feeling, something broken beyond repair between us. When I went back inside, the party had lost its sparkle. Some guests had already filtered out, Others had retreated upstairs. Ethan saw me at once, hurrying over, his eyes searching mine, trying to read what I was thinking. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, his hand on my back, offering the only comfort left in that moment. "Can we leave now?" I whispered, desperate to escape this nightmare. He nodded, his arm around me as he guided me up the stairs, determined to get out of there as fast as possible. Of course, the coat room was tucked away at the far end of the second floor. Typical. At that moment, though, all I wanted was to grab our things and get out. Ethan stepped ahead to call for the car, leaving me alone in that room, surrounded by the remnants of the evening's tension. As I reached for my coat, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. I turned around, and there she was, Madeline, staggering slightly, her hand still gripping a nearly empty glass of wine. "We're not done yet," she slurred, her eyes bloodshot, filled with venom that had nothing to do with alcohol. I took a long, steady breath, bracing myself. "Madeline, you're drunk. Go home. Get some rest." She took a step closer, her glare sharp enough to slice through me. "You always get everything, don't you? Always the one mom praises. Always the golden child. And me? I'm just the joke. Tonight was supposed to be mine." "I didn't take anything from you," I shot back, my fingers tightening around my coat, like it was the only thing keeping me from snapping. "I never wanted this attention, Madeline." Madeline scoffed. "Then prove it. Prove you're not pregnant. If you really didn't want all eyes on you, why pretend?" Before I could even react, she shoved me hard in the chest, sending me reeling backward. The floor was slick beneath me, my hands flailing as I reached for the door frame. But it was too late. I missed. I fell. The fall seemed endless. My heart clenched, and I instinctively curled into myself, wrapping my arms around my belly. It happened so fast, but time stretched out like a slow-motion nightmare. My back slammed into the edge of the stairs before I tumbled the rest of the way down the cold, unforgiving steps. I threw my hand out to catch myself, but a sharp crack rang through my body, followed by blinding pain. Everything blurred. I crumpled at the foot of the stairs. I lay there trembling, gasping for breath, my wrist burning with pain. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, from far away, Ethan's voice cut through the haze, panic thick in every word. "Sophie, are you okay?" All I could whisper was one desperate plea. "Save the baby, Ethan." Our baby? I don't remember much after that. The wail of ambulance sirens, the flashing lights, hurried footsteps, and someone screaming, probably Ethan, all blending into the pain as I slipped away into darkness. I woke up in a hospital room, my wrist trapped in a heavy cast, my other arm hooked to an IV. The harsh white lights overhead made me squint, the sterile brightness blinding me. Ethan sat beside me, his head in his hands, looking like the weight of the world had aged him 10 years. "Ethan," my voice croaked, rough as if pulled from the depths of hell. He shot up, his eyes bloodshot, but they lit up with profound relief when he saw me awake. "You're okay, you're awake," he whispered, relief flooding his voice. He grabbed my good hand, gentle but tight, careful not to touch the broken one. "The doctor said you fractured your radius. It's 6 weeks in a cast, but most importantly," he hesitated, "the baby's fine. They did an ultrasound. The heartbeat's strong. We didn't lose the baby, Sophie." I broke down, the tears flowing uncontrollably. The pain in my wrist was nothing compared to the suffocating fear of losing my child again. I had escaped a nightmare, but deep down I knew this was only the beginning of a much worse one. In the days that followed, my world was reduced to the cold, sterile white of hospital walls, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and the constant mechanical beep of the heart monitor. My casted wrist felt like a lead weight, a constant reminder of the pain I couldn't escape. But through it all, there was a flicker of relief. Our baby was safe. Thank God our baby was safe. After everything, I thought Madeline might at least have the decency to stay away. But of course, It was my parents who showed up first. Just as Ethan stepped out to grab some snacks, the door to my hospital room swung open. My father, Douglas Henderson, walked in with his usual stern demeanor, followed by my mother, Linda. Her eyes were puffy, but the coldness in her gaze could have frozen me in place. "Sophie, we need to talk," my father's voice commanded, cutting through the sterile air. My hand instinctively gripped the blanket over my belly, as if protecting what little peace I had left. The pain in my wrist throbbed like a cruel reminder that I couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. "I'm listening," I said, trying to steady my breath. "What do you want to say?" My mother spoke first, her voice trembling with pleading, but undercut by the reproach that always followed Madeline's mistakes. Madeline told us everything. She had too much to drink, lost control. No one wanted this to happen, Sophie. I let out a dry, hollow laugh. "Lost control?" I shot back, my voice sharp. "Are you talking about the shove that nearly killed my child? Or was it her impulse to test if I was faking my pregnancy?" My father's frown deepened, his voice dropping low with the weight of a lecture I was already sick of hearing. "Sophie, no one's denying Madeline was wrong. But she's your sister, your blood. Are you really going to drag this through court? Our family can't survive a scandal like this." Each time he said, "our family," it rang hollow, a flimsy excuse to justify the unforgivable. "What about me, Dad? Am I not part of this family?" "You're blowing this out of proportion," my mother interrupted, gripping her purse as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. "Madeline isn't a bad person. She's been going through a lot. You know it was a moment of recklessness. Are you really going to ruin her career over one mistake?" At that moment, Ethan returned, holding a sandwich box. The second he saw the scene unfolding, his face darkened. "I believe I should be part of this conversation," Ethan interjected, his voice calm but heavy with intent. "Sophie nearly lost her life because of her sister, and our unborn child went through trauma none of you seem to care about," Ethan said, his voice firm. "All I hear from you two is family and Madeline's career. What about Sophie? Who's standing up for her?" The room grew thick with tension, the silence pressing down like a heavy weight. My father crossed his arms, his eyes sharpening like daggers. "We acknowledge the consequences, but as family, Ethan, we need to know when to yield, when to save face. Have you thought about the fallout from a lawsuit?" "Don't lecture me about morals," Ethan shot back, unflinching. "Madeline nearly killed my wife. She must face legal consequences, not just a few scoldings before life goes back to normal." My mother collapsed into a chair, her face hidden in her hands, sobbing. "Sophie, she's your sister. Can you really be this heartless? If you press charges, you'll destroy this family." I pressed my lips together, the bitterness rising like bile in my throat. "I'm not destroying anything, Mom. Madeline made her choice the moment she pushed me down those stairs." But my father wasn't done. His voice dropped, each word colder than the last. "Sophie, if you press charges, prepare yourself. Your mother and I will have nothing more to say to you." I wasn't surprised. The words only confirmed what I'd known deep down. In their eyes, Madeline was always worth protecting. And me? Even as the victim, I was expected to remain silent. Ethan took my hand, squeezing it tightly, a silent promise that he was with me, always. I took a deep breath, feeling the pain in my wrist, in my body, and deeper still, the wound left by my family. It was a strange, eerie calm. "I'm going to press charges against Madeline," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Not out of hatred, but because I need to protect myself and my child. My father clenched his jaw, and my mother sobbed louder. But this time, I didn't feel the sting of hurt. They chose Madeline. I chose what was right. 3 days later, my lawsuit was officially filed in Phoenix City Court. Signing those papers didn't feel like I thought it would. There was no satisfaction, no sense of victory, only a crushing weight. But for the first time, I felt like I was truly standing up for myself. You did nothing wrong, Sophie. Ethan squeezed my hand gently as we left the lawyer's office. The truth is harsh, but it must be spoken, he said softly. I remained silent, my father's words echoing in my head, a constant hum of judgment. If you press charges against Madeline, this family is done with you. But this time, I couldn't afford to waver. News of Madeline being investigated spread faster than I could have imagined. One afternoon, as I rested at home, my phone rang. It was Aunt Beth, the one who had unwittingly thrown me into the spotlight at the party. Sophie, are you sure you want to take this that far? She asked, blunt as always. Madeline's more fragile than you think. She's falling apart. I closed my eyes, fatigue weighing heavily on me. Aunt Beth, I'm not the one pushing this. Madeline did that herself. If I stay silent, who's going to protect me? Who's going to protect this baby? Aunt Beth sighed but said nothing more. The line went silent, heavy and suffocating. 3 weeks later, the preliminary ruling from the court came down. Madeline wasn't jailed, but she was sentenced to a year of probation, forced to pay all my medical expenses, and attend 6 months of mandatory counseling. Most importantly, she was issued a restraining order, keeping her at least 300 feet away from me and my child. I thought, after everything, my parents might finally step back. But no, they clung to the same tired excuse. Madeline's mental health struggles were to blame. She's been depressed since the wedding was canceled, Sophie, my mother choked out on the phone. What she did was terrible, I admit. But she needs help, not this public humiliation. And what about me, Mom? I shot back, the words sharp. Have you ever considered how I felt, nearly losing my baby, being pushed down the stairs by my own sister over jealousy? My father interrupted, his voice colder than steel. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. Every family has conflicts. Madeline confessed. She apologized. What more do you want? Would you only be satisfied if she ends up in jail? No, Dad, I replied, each word as heavy as stone. I want her to face real consequences, I said. To understand that no one gets to hurt others and walk away with just an apology. Ethan sat beside me, silent but unwavering, his grip on my hand steady like an anchor in a storm. My mother broke down into sobs, as if she were the one who had been wronged. You'll regret this, Sophie. The whole family will turn their backs on you for pushing your sister down this path. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say when the truth had been twisted so completely. I hung up quietly, an unexpected sense of relief washing over me, far stronger than any hollow excuse they could offer. The day of Madeline's sentencing, I didn't show up. Not because I was avoiding it, but because, for the first time, I didn't care to see the pleading, accusatory looks from the people I once called family. After the hearing, Aunt Beth called me again. This time, her tone was different. No scolding, no pleading. Sophie, no matter what, I'm proud of you for doing the right thing, Aunt Beth said, her voice sincere. I smiled faintly, a bittersweet ache lingering in my chest. You know, Aunt Beth, that's something I always thought would come from my parents. In the days that followed, texts and calls from my parents grew distant, almost non-existent. Ethan spent more time with me, focusing on preparing for our child's arrival. He repainted the nursery, carefully perfecting every detail as if he could scrub away the lingering pain with every soft stroke of paint. I realized finally that family isn't just about blood. Family is who stands by you when everyone else turns their back. As for Madeline, she was finally facing the consequences of her own actions, and this time, there was no one left to shield her. My son was born on a cold March morning, the tail end of winter still clinging to Phoenix's streets. A moment I'll never forget. The sound of his first cry echoed through the room, tiny but deafening. It was a symphony that wiped away the last remnants of those dark, exhausting months. Ethan held my hand, his eyes red-rimmed but glowing with a light I had been waiting for my whole life. Pure, unfiltered joy. "Welcome to the world, little man," he whispered, his voice full of wonder. And in that moment, I knew exactly where I was meant to be. Right here, with Ethan and our son. We named our son Ethan, a name that felt like the start of everything good. 3 days later, as Ethan and I brought Ethan home, the soft beeping of his heart monitor filling the nursery, a knock shattered the calm. I knew immediately it wasn't the neighbors. Ethan opened the door. There, standing on our porch, were my parents. My mother held an oversized gift basket, filled with newborn items, the tag still on. My father stood behind her, clutching a bottle of wine and a stuffed bear, both so painfully out of place in this moment. "Sophie," my mother's voice rang out, unnervingly cheerful, as if the last few months of threats, tears, and Madeline's court case had never existed. "We heard you had the baby," she said, her voice too upbeat. "We had to come right away. Your father insisted we couldn't miss this special day as grandparents." Ethan stepped forward, standing firm in the doorway. His voice wasn't loud, but each word cut through the air like a razor. "I think you should leave," Ethan said, his voice unwavering. My father frowned while my mother tried to look past Ethan, her eyes pleading. "Sophie, darling," she pleaded, "let's not make this harder. Today is supposed to be a happy day. You've had Ethan. The family should be together. Let's put the past behind us." Holding Ethan close, I looked at them through the window, his tiny hand wrapped instinctively around my finger. His tiny hand gripped mine, so fragile yet so strong. That fragile grip reminded me of everything I needed to protect. I would never allow anyone to hurt my family again. "I already gave you both a chance." Ethan's voice deepened. "A chance to apologize to my wife, to protect her," he said, his tone unwavering. "But you chose to defend Madeline. You turned your backs on Sophie when she needed you the most. And now, because this little boy is here, you think you can just pretend none of it happened?" My father's grip tightened around the gift basket, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Our grandson has just been born. Ethan, you have no right to keep us from seeing him." Ethan laughed, but it was a dry, bitter sound that sent a shiver through the air. "Wrong, Mr. Henderson," Ethan said coldly. "This is my home, my family, and I have every right to decide who crosses this threshold." My mother's face turned crimson, her voice rising in panic. "Sophie, you've been silent this whole time. Are you really going to let your husband insult your own parents like this?" I stepped forward, pulling Ethan even closer to my chest, feeling the warmth of his tiny body. The pain from my surgery still throbbed, but my steps felt steady for the first time in ages. "I've held my tongue long enough, Mom," I said calmly. "But when your daughter nearly dies and you choose to protect the one who hurt her, it speaks volumes. You call me heartless for pressing charges against Madeline. Have you ever thought about who was truly heartless when she pushed a pregnant woman down the stairs?" My mother's face drained of color, but her voice remained steady, though her resolve faltered. "Madeline's getting therapy. She's changed. Sophie, you can't just throw away the whole family over one mistake." "I'm not throwing anyone away," I said, my voice steady. "I'm choosing to protect myself, to protect Ethan. I won't let him grow up in a family where hurting others is overlooked." Ethan silently placed his hand on my shoulder, offering his support without saying a word. "We've thought this through, Mr. and Mrs. Henderson," Ethan said quietly. "If you keep intruding on our peace, I'll file for a restraining order." The words hit like thunder, echoing through the room. My father's eyes narrowed, his anger simmering. My mother stood frozen, her lips trembling, speechless. I knew that was the hardest blow we could land. For their whole lives, They believed they had the right to walk in and out of our lives. But not anymore. I'm asking you both to leave, Ethan said firmly, and don't come back. They stood there, a look of disbelief etched across their faces. Then, my father turned sharply, my mother holding back her sobs as she followed him out. The gift basket and stuffed bear were left on the doorstep, abandoned like they had been. Without saying a word, Ethan bent down, picked up the basket, and set it beside the trash bin, its significance lost on him. The door closed softly behind him, but with finality. I held Ethan close, my eyes blurred with tears. But my heart felt lighter than it had in months. My family, my real family, was right here, in this small house. Everything else could stay behind that door, forever. The next morning, before the first rays of sunlight could dry the dew on the porch, Ethan had a security team installing cameras around the house. I stood by the window, Ethan cradled in my arms, watching as Ethan checked every corner, every angle, with the precision he always brought to everything. We can't control what others think, but we can control who's in our lives, Ethan said, as if answering the question I hadn't even dared to ask myself. I nodded. For the first time in months, this house felt truly like ours. No more fake sympathy. No more late-night calls filled with pressure. Just the three of us. Small, yes, but enough to call it family. That afternoon, while Ethan rocked Ethan to sleep, I slipped outside into the backyard. The lavender I had planted during my pregnancy still bloomed, soft and resilient, a symbol of everything I had endured. I sat down, running my fingers over the delicate petals, letting the calmness of the moment ease the tension in my chest. It had been a long journey, silent suffering, followed by the unbearable truth I had to face. There were times I wondered if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. But no, sometimes love needs boundaries. Madeline chose to push me away with her actions. My parents chose to turn their backs when I needed them the most. And for the first time, I chose to protect myself and my little family above the so-called obligations that had bound me. No more threats of being disowned. No more crocodile tears disguised as family ties. Now they were distant echoes, locked behind a door that would stay shut. That night, as we rocked Ethan to sleep, Ethan pulled me close, his voice deep, comforting, but carrying the weight of everything. I know you never wanted it to come to this, he said, his voice gentle but firm. But you did the right thing, Sophie. You stood up, for yourself, and for our child. I rested my head on his shoulder, the sound of Ethan's steady breathing from the cradle beside our bed, soothing me more than any words could. Each breath reminded me that this peace came from hard choices. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. The security system was now fully activated. A simple message, but it meant more to me than 1,000 reassurances. Your home is protected, I smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. This wasn't just a house, it was home, a fortress Ethan and I had built together, despite the fractures created by blood ties. The days that followed were filled with simple, fulfilling routines. No more accusatory messages, no more malicious gossip. Somehow, my family learned to stay away. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of pride. But it didn't matter anymore. We invested our time in what truly mattered. Lazy mornings watching Ethan stretch and yawn. Peaceful afternoons laughing at his attempts to babble "da mama." That, his laughter, his happiness, was what I wanted to protect. One day, Ethan asked, "Do you think your parents will ever really understand?" I simply shook my head. That's not important anymore, Ethan. What matters is that I now understand who deserves to stay and who needs to be let go. We didn't need to say anything else. This isn't a story of revenge or pleading for recognition from those who never valued me. This is a story about standing tall and protecting what matters most: peace, self-respect, and the family I chose. Sophie's story isn't just a tale of betrayal by blood, it's a courageous journey of setting boundaries with toxic relationships. In real life, many endure pain out of obligation, forgetting that true family is built on respect and safety. Sophie chose to protect herself and her child, even at the cost of temporary loneliness. But that choice brought lasting peace, a deep understanding of self-worth, and the true meaning of family. What do you think about Sophie's decision? Was she too harsh, or was it the necessary step to protect her family? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful life stories like this.